Macaman, McDonald and McCullen, joined by our guy Kevin Kinkead from the self-proclaimed most irreverent sporting outlet in Philadelphia. And oh, by the way, I agree. Most of it has to do with Kyle over Kevin, but that's just me.
That Jody's insulting people this week.
Yeah, I am.
He insulted Les.
Well, I'm going to turn the insult into a question, legit, and we'll get to the Eagles. Everybody don't get, but I got a crossing board question. How much editing do you have to do for Kyle Pagan? Because some of his stuff is out there. It's entertaining as hell, but some of it I just scratch my head going, where the hell is he going with this? He's a different dude. I like him, but he's a different dude. You're in charge. How much do you have to reel him back in?
Well, do I want to give up trade secrets here? I don't know. This is kind of proprietary information.
Right up to the line that you're not giving away trade secrets, but just a legit.
He does require some editing. That is certainly true, right? John, I'm not offended by what Jody said because Kyle has the irreverent man on the street videos and whatnot. I handle the big J stuff, I guess, if you want to call it that. On the side, we each have our own niche. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But, and it works. The two guys balance each other. Yeah.
To answer Jody's question, yes, there's a bit of editing that goes into that for sure.
Is it mainly technical editing, or you're trying to pull Kyle back a little bit? I'm going to guess technical, right?
It's a little bit of both. Yeah, there's some words that I've taken out of there that the other Kyle may not have taken out, 5 or 6 years ago. So yeah, there's if there's a line to walk, I'm sitting right on top of
it. Good on you, Kinkead. All right. And like you said, you do the heavy J work, the journalistic work, and I got to give you credit because you get some pretty good video up on your site too. Like the play that Sean Desai had 9 guys, seemed like 9 guys on the line, and you got Hassan Reddick dropping back in coverage and the like. So there's some serious football analysis on your website. From the time the game kicks off until the time you're going to post, how much work do you have to do in breaking down game film?
To be honest, I'm not really, nobody's ever going to confuse me for one of the all 22 guys on social media who's doing the threads every week. Like typically, Jody, we have like so much that we're doing every week. I mean, we only have a 2.5 person staff, so I kind of I'll throw the replay film on there and kind of put it up on the other monitor and like let it play in the background if I get a break. Or like in this case, if I see something specific, if there's a play, when I'm doing like the takeaways column or something, I'm like, what the hell are they doing here? Make a note to kind of go back and look at that when the coach's film comes out. And that was, the one that you're talking about specifically, that was a product of that. I'm not really like a film shark. I'm a soccer guy, really.
That's why I'm asking. When you do film, I always think it's great. You point out things that other people don't catch or should be taking more note of than they do. That's why I asked the question.
Well, listen, I think but doesn't that kind of tell the story? Because I'm not like a deep dive X's and O's guy, but if we can spot stuff on the surface, then there's issues, right? I mean, in that case specifically, it was the play where Keely Ringo got flagged for 2 penalties on the same play.
That was a hell of a pass rush on that play.
Yeah, it was like the old one man pass rush, because Josh Sweat got kind of chipped off the edge. They lined up Hassan Reddick as a defensive tackle. No issues there. They've been doing that for years with various defensive coordinators. But yeah, they didn't rush him. They kind of dropped him off as a spy. And it was supposed to be a 3-man rush turned into a 2-man rush with a rookie 1v1 on the outside. So I look at stuff like that, I'm kind of thinking like, oh, what exactly is going on? And then you had 2 guys who were off the screen entirely, Jody, so it was like they were playing 5 yards beyond the line of gain, press man coverage in that like big dime, I think, package that they call it. 3 safeties out there, 3 corners, and the pass rush didn't even get close.
All right, man, you're a sort of man of the people. So as you say, you're looking at that. And if there's obvious issues, where does Kevin Kinkead go? Does he say, wow, that's really poor execution? Or let's fire the coordinators after two losses.
I'm always more of a, but the thing, John, is like when the team plays well, this is what we do in Philadelphia. When the team plays well, the players get all the credit. When they don't play well, the coaches get all the blame. But I think the players gotta play better. Linebackers are not attacking the gaps. Pass rush is dried up. I don't think anybody really wants to say it, but the offensive line has been underwhelming this year. I don't think they've played as well as they could have. Defensive line couldn't get close to Dak the other night. Running West Coast principles. He gets the ball out quickly, sure. But to me, it's on the players more than anything schematically. I think offensively, you look at that more. I'm looking at some of these slow developing routes, stuff that's 15 yards down the field. There's not always an obvious check down or a dump off. And, schematically, I wondered sometimes what the heck they're doing on offense, where a lot of it is, out of the pocket, kind of Jalen Hurts making plays, doing stuff with his feet, finding guys down the sideline or whatever. But, you look at how easy other teams make it, Dak dropping 3-step drops, anticipation throws, timing routes, things like that, little mesh concepts, crossing routes that, other offenses being able to run a pick play without getting a flag.
Yeah, that is fair. That is a fair criticism. Nick Sirianni is
hard on themselves.
Yeah, a wide receiver expert, and we're 3 years in. They can't run a damn rubber out. They can't do it.
So here's a general football question for both of you two guys. And the Eagles are part of the answer, but they're just one of 32. If Tom Brady feels the need to step up and go, the product sucks, which he never did when he played. But now
he
that
did,
he's done,
Jody, he did. I
very infrequently. Come on, how many times was Tom Brady?
I'm just being fair. He did.
20 years.
He did.
All right, I'm speaking in generalities. From the time he became the starting quarterback of the New England Patriots to the time last month when he said the product sucks. How many times do you think he was asked that question?
He said it in Tampa. The product
175 times, and he answered it maybe once, kind of, sort of that way before, and then he comes out the product sucks, which I think is a little misleading. But if we agree with him that the product stinks, do you think maybe it has something to do with that they washed their own game down the river by not allowing teams to practice? That they collectively bargained away, God forbid they give the players 0.1% more of the overall gross revenues. We don't ever want to give the players an extra penny for anything. So what do we got to give them? Less practice. Hey, you don't have to practice. You don't have to hit. You can't wear pads, all this other stuff. Is there a chance that that's a big contributing factor to the fact that Tom Brady or anybody else can say the product just isn't as good as it used to be?
Oh, God. Well, I mean, that's such a nebulous concept, Jody. I don't know how much practice does somebody need. I mean, do you need 15 practices or do you need 30 practices? I have no idea how to answer that. I would ask, though, did we ever determine what specifically Brady was talking about there? What didn't he like about the product? Like, what was his specific complaint? What was he bitching about when he said that?
Well, he was talking about, he's talking a lot about the safety things, which are obviously indemnity issues from a legal standpoint.
Okay. Right.
And he was trying to say, like, it's not a defender's job. He's actually defending defense, which is kind of interesting. Okay. And he said it's not the defender's job to protect offensive players. It's the offensive player's job. And he said back in when he started, and he wouldn't throw the ball over. He used Ray Lewis. I'm not throwing the ball over the middle with Ray Lewis. I'm not going to hang my receivers out to dry. It's my job to protect my guys. It's not defenders. So he's complaining about that. He was also just talking about the product in general, as far as how it's shifted towards more of a college mindset, simpler offense. We're talking about with the Eagles, simple offense. And you mentioned the West Coast properties. There's no more Bill Walsh West Coast. As you mentioned, the Dallas Cowboys and certain other teams use principles, but you don't really have time to develop into the depth of a Bill Walsh West Coast offense. So those were the two main issues. And he did say it as a player in Tampa as well. So anyway, we've gotten off on a tangent, but I will say that, we like tangents. I would say that you mentioned it with the offensive line. A lot of people don't want to criticize the offensive line. A lot of people don't want to criticize the quarterback. And you mentioned that ability of dumping the football off. I've been saying this, and Jody knows that he's probably sick of it. They don't dump. Jalen doesn't dump at all.
There's no
So
check down. I mean, half
No.
the time, John, like when you look at before I forget, I think it was Ed Krass posted on Twitter. I didn't even notice this until he put it out there. But Jalen only targeted 3 players.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
3.
We've
Yeah.
been talking about that.
Yeah, we've been-
That's
yeah.
that's
I know.
almost
It's unbelievable.
But that links. I wanted to bring that up because that links into the point of sometimes when I like just do my casual look at all 22 or whatever. By the time DeAndre Swift or Kenny Gainwell or whoever can kind of leak out, they like to kind of leak them through the middle more than to the sides, right? Because I think Jalen's getting flushed left or right either way. It's kind of redundant. He's not going to turn and throw back across his body, right? So they leak him out. They do a little 3-yard turn and look at the quarterback, right? But by the time he even gets his head turned, Jalen's already running to his right. So it's almost to me like they feel schematically like the dump off or the check down is just Jalen using his feet and getting out of it.
It is.
So that's why you're able to. That's why the offense has been able to rank the way it has with a bunch of guys running intermediate and deep routes on multiple plays. They have these like mirrored like daggers and whatnot. I'm kind of looking at it like, what is this? What are these route combinations? Like, it doesn't make sense. There's no obvious underneath kind of thing. There's nothing where Jalen just takes like 3 steps, throws off his front foot and just gets rid of it. Those plays, I broke down on the site that series of plays where they had a 3rd and 11 and then 4th and 8 where he was throwing off his back foot. There was a 7-step drop where he just kind of threw it low to Devontae, so it didn't have a prayer. Everybody knew that Dallas was blitzing. Everybody knew that they were sending 2 linebackers up the middle. It seems like the easy stuff is just
they don't have hot routes. They don't have hot routes. They don't have blitz beaters. But I said that for this reason, Kevin. As you mentioned, they want to protect the players. They want to, when things go bad, they blame the coaches. Yeah. You could look at Nick Sirianni in Indianapolis and even going back to San Diego when he didn't have as much power. But when he had Phillip Rivers, completely different. You had hot routes. You had dump offs because the quarterback was comfortable with it.
Yeah.
So in a lot of ways, to me, we built the offense around the strengths of his quarterback. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that's a good thing when I see other coaches who don't do that. And we've seen that a lot this year, Kevin, because we've seen so many backup quarterbacks.
Yeah.
I think that's a good thing.
I would just say real quick too. I'm looking at the chat too, and they always have a field day because they think I look like Sirianni.
Yeah. You do.
You
got a little bit.
A little resemblance.
Not
mad.
You got to go full beard.
There was one day where my daughters woke up really, really early, and I got like no sleep, and I had these huge bags under my eyes, and some guy on Twitter said I looked like drunk Nick Sirianni or high Nick Sirianni. So but yeah, you know what it is, John? It's almost like they factor his feet so much into the way that they map out the offense, like I'm saying with the obvious dump offs not being there because, you don't have to always have that because he can get out of the pocket pretty easily. Right. So do you have to scheme that into your routes, right? Do you even need that dump off, right? Because like I said, by the time you would throw it there, he's already out of the pocket anyway. And what looks janky to me, particularly the last couple of weeks specifically, is anything in the read and pull game. They've had some like clunky looking exchanges. You had the play a couple of weeks ago where Jalen kind of double clutched with Gainwell in there. He kind of like gave it to him and then he pulled it back and they tried to give it to him again.
Everybody wanted to blame Kenny because they don't like Kenny, but that was Jalen.
It's like he almost forgot what the play was, right? Because once Gainwell feels it come out of his gut, he's moving forward. He's like, I'm not getting the ball. So that wasn't his fault at all. But that has looked. I try to look at the way that teams are playing that, and they just kind of time out they have the timing of it down. It's like I know that he's going to read me and pull at this split second, and I'm going to hold, and then I'm going to close the space as soon as he makes it. It looks like there's a lot of last minute, like he's like split second trying to think if he should put it in the gut or not. Even some of the pulls that he's had, the interception against was it Buffalo, I think, where he was a good pull actually, but he tried to throw over 2 guys who were coming at him at the same time. So just that whole everything in the option game, the zone read, the RPO game looks kind of funky. The handoffs aren't clean. And yeah, it's just they're doing a lot of stuff off schedule. You know what I mean? Like him making plays happen when they could just scheme it up to make it a lot easier for him.
Unlike the use of the word John, which I'm on record, I just can't stand anymore.
Yeah, I'm over that too.
Love the use of the word janky. Very good on you, Kay.
Good word. Yeah, I like that.
I'm
word.
a janky guy. Forget John. I'm with you. I'm a janky guy. If I'm not the president of the Bradbury fan club, I'm at least a cabinet member. Seeing I was lobbying to get him when he was still a member of the Giants. Sign him as a free agent. He's still under contract to arrive. What the hell are you talking about, McDonald? Oh, yeah, they released him, and oh, yeah, the Eagles signed him. And then like a proud papa when he makes All-Pro last year. Not Pro Bowl, All-Pro last year. He's not playing well this year, Kev. We all got annoyed at Deebo Samuel when he called him trash.
Trash, yeah.
And I'm not going to trash, but Bradbury's just not playing well. He's going back to that 30-yard penalty against the Cowboys when it was the easiest pass interference call ever in the history of football that gave the Cowboys the chance to go down and potentially steal a game for the Eagles. Thank God that they didn't, but he's not having a real good year. How bad is it in your estimation that we were all trying to figure out as a coach, as a quarterback, whatever? Sometimes it's guys that you just put in as given. Well, he's going to be good. And then they're not, and you can't even wrap your head around it. How bad do you think Bradbury's been?
Yeah, it does kind of look like he's falling off a cliff a little bit. Doesn't he just look slow to you? Like, how many times do I feel like he's just trying to catch up the guys? It seems like
Bob Groats ahead of the curve.
I was going to say, Groats gets to take a victory lap on that one. He's been calling him slow since he showed up here.
Yeah, he is slow for an NFL corner.
Yeah, he looks like he's a step behind. So as we like to advance the story, as we used to say in the journalism business at Channel 3, what do you do about that? Because the Eagles aren't an amazing blitzing team. And they've always relied on their front four, right? So do you just go two safeties and just give the corners that help on the back end and just trust the guys to get there? Or do you risk it and send extra bodies forward and leave them on islands? Because if you do the Gannon thing where you're preventing big plays and leaving two guys back there, that's not your strongest position group this year.
By the way,
you don't have your best personnel out there on the field, right? I mean, is that the way you want to go?
I advocated the Eagles should just go full-blown cover 2 against Dallas, and it did not work. They did. They actually took my advice. It did not work, and then they kind of shifted. But
if they had linebackers who were more aggressive and could had gap integrity and who could attack in there, then maybe that would have been a little bit different. But Dallas, how many times did they run the ball early where it just seemed like they were getting 6 or 7 or 8 or whatever, and then you're like, well, you're preventing the big play, but you're just getting gashed in the middle. So.
Yeah, I've never been a fan. Jody knows this, but because I like Jonathan, everybody knows that. I got along with JG, and I thought he did a good job, and I don't lie to people with that. They had the second-ranked defense in the NFL last year. You see where it is this year. He's not a bad coach. However, while I say that, I don't like this scheme. I've never liked this scheme, Kevin. One of my biggest problems, and we've seen it in the past with Tony Dungy, Pete Carroll. Once somebody has success, too many teams play it, too many teams copy it, then quarterbacks get used to it. I think that's where we are with the Vic Fangio scheme, and that's what the Eagles are running. I want an innovator. I always bring up Brian Flores. That's the guy I want. I want the guy who does something that nobody else does. And he's got, you talk about no talent. That guy's got no talent, and he's got a top 10 defense. Now that to me is coaching. Where are we with this defensive scheme?
I don't even know. I don't even know at this point what they're trying to do. They just look tired to me. Don't they? I mean, I know that they've played a lot of snaps, but
they played a ton of snaps. Yeah.
But even then, it's like you Derek Barnett's there. You waive him. You've got Nolan Smith, Brandon Graham. They had been running Hassan Reddick and Josh Sweat upwards of 80% of the snaps.
Yep.
Even before Barnett was waived. So I'm not really sure what they were doing in that regard. I mean, Nakobe Dean was a huge, I'm not ready to call Nakobe Dean a miss or a bust or anything like that. You know, but they factored him in as being linebacker one. He's not out there, and they got guys that they picked up off the street. So that's been a huge, I mean, think about, look at what TJ Edwards is doing right now, you know, tackling machine, playing at a solid level. Kaiser White, both those guys would be an improvement off of what they have right now. And then the safety position, you know, whatever, right? I mean, I don't know if, you know, I don't know if you can run, you know, Gannon's scheme without any kind of, well, what was the issue last year? You know, they had to go out and get Sue and Joseph because they were getting gashed in the run game, you know?
Yeah.
So is that solution is not, if you switch to that, is that solution there? Do you present the same problem that it created last year? You know, I think that's the issue, you know?
So let me ask you this. Should they have paid CJGJ what he got from Detroit? If they had offered him exactly what he got, same price tag, and assuming he would take it, unless he got a man on because he thought the Eagles owed him multi-years and he didn't want to do it at 1 year, make good type deal here in Philadelphia. But if they had been able to put that on the table, offer it, and he takes it, could Howie Roseman have handled everything else he wanted to do? Was that a miscalculation on the general manager's part in your estimation?
Well, in hindsight, if the choice is Slay and CJGJ versus Slay and Bradbury, yeah, I would take Slay and Chauncey Gardner-Johnson now looking back at it, sure. But I guess they just thought that safety was a plug-and-play kind of position, and they liked what they had in Blankenship and, you know, prioritized corner. But I don't know. I was a big fan of what Jim Schwartz was able to do with Malcolm Jenkins, where, you know, they would leave Rodney McLeod back there, you know, 60-40 hash safety, and they would walk Malcolm Jenkins up to the box, and he could do a lot of different things. I'd much rather have a versatile safety. I'm not calling CJGJ Malcolm Jenkins, but he does do a lot of different things like that. There's more flexibility, come up and cover a tight end, whatever. You know, I think, yeah, I would rather spread out my talent at least a little bit more over those position groups, you know, instead of having two good cornerbacks and just throw guys back there at safety. No, yeah, I probably would have had him in hindsight. You know, I don't know if I felt that way initially, but looking at how James Bradbury's played this year, yes, I can unequivocally say that hindsight is 2020.
The scary thing about it is you feel that way in hindsight. And CJGJ hasn't even played. Yeah. He's been gone all year. If he was playing well, you go, oh, shoot, I got that one wrong, and I'll admit to it. We don't even know what CJGJ would have done because we can't judge him. He's been out all year for Detroit.
All right, I've been on, speaking of safety, I've been on this kick all week, Kevin, so I want to get your take on it. And it's hindsight, and I admit that. But to me, when I look at this team, they lack speed on the back end, except for Slay, who can still run at 32. Mm-hmm. We just talked about it with Bradbury, Reed, Kevin Byard, latter stages of his career. They lack speed. And it's hurting them. This is a speed-based game, and they got Sidney Brown, who can, if there's one thing he can do, he can run. Ran a 4.47 coming out.
Yeah,
went over 22 miles per hour on the GPS in college. You can see his burst. You can see his athleticism. I go all the way back to week 1, and I said, throw him out there. Throw him in the deep end of the pool, the old Jim Schwartz startup cost, get him over with. And who knows, by this point, he might be a player. And the Kansas City Chiefs did that last year, and they had some hiccups. They played a bunch of rookie defensive backs. They had some bad situations during the regular season, but the playoffs came around, and those guys stepped up and were ready to go. I think Sidney Brown from day one would have been very, very helpful for this team. And now that sort of is already out the window.
Yeah. I mean, well, let me give you a parallel here. My management style is very hands off, right? Why do you hire you hire people for a reason, right? Because you believe in them and you think they're good at what they do. I don't have to tell Kyle Pagan anything, right? He's just like, hey, I'm going to go do this video over here. Good, go do it. Because I know you're going to do a good job with it and it's going to turn out great. So likewise, you're going to draft a guy for what? Obviously, you drafted him for a reason, right? He wasn't.
And he's a red star pick, an Eagles red star pick, which means everything we want on the field and off the field.
Yeah, so throw him out there. I mean, what are you holding on to him for? You know, I mean, because the alternative is to again sign some guy off the scrap heap throw him out there as a temporary thing, and he's not going to be here after next year. So I would rather have them do that. I agree with you on that. I just don't. He had that play against Dallas where he just came downhill and just crushed the one guy.
Yeah.
And okay, they need that. I don't know if you guys agree with Seth Joyner or not about his thing about tackling or whatever, but it does seem like once a guy gets past the first level, he's kind of dragging people. There's always like an extra 2 or 3 yards after contact or something like that. It does feel like that once they get guys going in there, speed and open space tackling become an issue. Now that's been a thing all year long.
Well, but where Slay got upset and he took it out on me because he knows I'm on the Seth show.
Oh, he took it out on you? I didn't even see that.
No, he didn't. He didn't take it out on me.
Oh, okay.
We were just talking about it. He's like, he was talking about Seth, and I said, "Look, Seth is old school. Seth is, And the one thing Slay took exception to was, the question of they were afraid. He said we had a crappy tackling day. Yeah. We're not afraid. That's what he took exception to.
Yeah. Fair enough.
I go back
to that point though. It's like what position on the defense does the least amount of tackling, or do you want to see flying into a pile like a missile? Like cornerbacks aren't really paid to do that anyway. We all watched Asante Samuel play here. He was not paid for his tackling ability, and
Deion Sanders.
Deion got to the Hall of Fame, and he never tackled anybody in 10 years.
Yeah.
The best tackling cornerback I've ever seen is Antoine Winfield Sr., who was a tremendous tackler. And if you ask me who number 2 is, I would got to think about it because there aren't many good tackling cornerbacks.
I'll give you a guy who tackled great last week, and it was against the Philadelphia Eagles. Stephon Gilmore came up, helped in the run, made plays on the edge, not just pulled down his guy after he pushed him out of bounds after a 17-yard gain. You get a tackle for that.
He was
really a guy out of bounds 17 yards down the field. That ching, that's
he was really, really good on that. I don't know if you guys saw the thread that I put on Twitter, X, the X thread that I did yesterday, and I put it on the site. But it was when they got into Dallas territory. It was 27-13, and they had the disastrous 1 yard loss on first down. Then they had the kind of the improv end zone shot to Devontae Smith where Jalen was running to his right. They came back on third down. It was 3rd and 11, and they tried to run a little interference pick play. Again, Devontae didn't get anything of Gilmore, and Gilmore blew that up.
Yep.
Then on the play where the timing was off and Dallas blitzed on 4th and 8, Gilmore blew that up again. Yeah, I mean, he was just open space tackling for sure. It's it's funny because you watch Slay and you watch Bradbury, you watch both of them. If somebody's kind of getting up to the 2nd level or the 3rd level, but there's a linebacker kind of grabbing on him, or Reed Blankenship is in the area, they'll kind of go up and stand there. Be like, I'm here if you need me to help bring them down, but they're not gonna launch themselves into a pile of 3 people.
I feel like it's similar to tight ends blocking. The old adage is lose slowly. I think that's the same with cornerback tackling. Just get in the way.
I get why they would be offended by that, right? Because I don't think it's an issue of them being afraid to tackle. I think the corners are just I will tackle if I have to.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to launch myself with my head down and shoulder down into a pile of 3 people when there's a 97% chance of this guy's being dragged down to the ground anyway. So I get there's nuance to that,
Yeah.
KK, last question for me. How worried are you about this weekend's game? Because the Eagles have lost 7 straight times to the Seattle Seahawks.
I have no clue, honestly. Seattle hasn't been lighting the world on fire either. They've lost 5 or 6. Gino may or may not.
You don't know, with Gino. Yeah.
I just here's my thing about the last 2 games. I did not expect them to beat San Fran. I didn't expect them to beat Dallas. So I'm not surprised by that. But it's the way they lost. It's not that they lost. It's the way they lost. Yeah. So now I have no clue. I honestly have no clue because it did enough. The last 2 losses did enough to plant that seed of doubt in here that even if they win the next 4 or 3 of the next 4 and they get the 1 seed or the 2 seed or whatever, what people saw in these last 2 games, it's not nothing they do in the next 4 is going to be able to wash what we just saw. Yeah. Right? They lost badly enough to good teams that people are always that seed is going to be in here and radio is going to talk about it and Twitter's going to talk about it and that's going to be a thing, So to answer the question, I have no clue.
At Kevin_Kinkead. Make sure you follow him on X, not formerly known as Twitter.
Yes, X.
Crossing Broad obviously does a tremendous job there. I'll end it there. The seed of doubt that you talked about, is that seed of doubt so large you're starting to worry about Tommy Cutlets and every Sopranos joke in the world?
Don't get me started on that. Pagan wrote like an innocuous thing on the site about him yesterday, about it just being like a good story. You know, here's some random Italian kid living with his mom, wasn't even drafted, and he's playing well. And then he had people killing him because they thought he was like showing preference to the Paisan or something like that. Yeah, I don't know. I think I had to log off after seeing the 100 replies to that one, you know. So we'll move it on. We'll move it on to more topics that are less controversial. Like
Tommy Cutlets is coming up twice on the schedule. You're not going to be able to get around him.
I know, isn't that annoying too? That's very annoying.
It's incredibly. I got to watch Sean Stiletto to bring up every single Italian freaking. What's he doing, by the way? What's he getting applauded for? His agent. That's Tommy's agent.
Well, maybe later. Maybe we'll do a deep dive on whether Italians are being disrespected in 2023, and I'll pitch like the.
You got to do it. Yeah, pitch that to Kyle, because that's, you know, he's pandering there. Sean's
that one will require.
He doesn't normally dress like that.
No, that one will require a lot of editing to go back to the first thing that Jody asked.
So you guys are anti-male kissing at a football game? Is that what you're telling me? Because he did a lot of kissing. They had a lot of video of him kissing his client's dad during the game.
If Sean dressed like that on a daily basis, I would have no problem with it. But he does not.
You're guessing he doesn't? You think that was for show on Monday night?
I believe it was for show.
Man.
Well, it got him on Kay Adams' show the next day. So whatever he was doing, I think worked. Maybe next time I do Birds 365, I have to show up with
you got to get yourself a
fedora.
Got to get yourself a fedora there, Kinkead.
I have a little bit of Italian in me. Maybe I could do it. You know?
There you go. You could pull it off.
All right.
KK, always a pleasure, brother. Appreciate you hopping on today. We'll get you back up in about a month now.
Anytime, guys. Take it easy.
Kevin Kinkead, Crossing Broad, does a great job covering the Eagles and everything else going down in the world of sports here in Philly. Oh, you just ruined my day, John. I thought
Sean doesn't dress like that.
Yeah, I thought he was like Mr. Sopranos 365. We're Birds 365. I thought he was Sopranos 365. He's put on just for Monday Night Football that he knew ahead of time they were going to be videotaping him basically every time he turned around.
Yeah. He's got a lot of clients. Maybe he dresses like, maybe he's got a theme for all of them. I don't know. But Sean used to play in college, obviously, but he also played in the AFL.
Does he have an Eagle client?
Good question. I don't know off the top. I'll look.
All right, see if you can find that out. I'd love to know if he had an Eagle client, because it was entertaining. Sorry if that ticks off Eagle fans, because I said it too, that Tommy Cutlets and his story was entertaining. And oh, by the way, he made a couple of nice plays the other night. I made fun of Tommy DeVito. Who the hell is Tommy DeVito? How could Tommy DeVito be taking over the Giants? I said right here on Birds 365. I got to skim back a little bit. He made some plays the other night against the Packers. And yeah, the Eagles got him twice more yet this season. All right, McDonald and McMullen, final timeout. Come back, put a ball in the show.